Namo Shakuni Buddha. So today we continue to study about the life of Buddha, and we have learned that the first ever teaching the Buddha provide are the Four Noble Truths, and we have learned about the first two. The first one is the truth sufferings that includes the physical and mental sufferings that everyone of us has to go through, as well as all visible and invisible beings. And the second truth, the Buddha mentioned that those sufferings come from our greed, hatred, stupidity, and so forth. So that are the causes of sufferings. And we have discussed about that. And the third noble truth, the Buddha said that no matter what kind of sufferings we encounter, those sufferings can be transformed into happiness if we know how to utilize uh, the techniques, the paths, and of course that paths were given by the Buddha and the Four Noble Truths, the path to end the sufferings. And that path is simply uh, uh, conclude in what you call the A4 paths, the 8 steps that we can transform the sufferings into peacefulness and happiness. So let me show you one more time about the Buddha presentation that show us if we want to get away from the sufferings, we can follow these paths. And again, the Buddha served as a doctor. At first, he mentioned about the sufferings, the physical and mental sufferings. It's like a doctor indicate the symptoms that we have when we resist them. And the next step, the Buddha say the cause or the reason why we have that type of suffering. The doctor mentioned that why we have that type of symptoms. Like for example, if we have the stomach ache, that's physical suffering. And the doctor may say, well, because we may have eaten wrong food, or spoiled food, or too much, that's cause of physical suffering. And the next step, the Buddha say, well, no matter what type of suffering, we can end. Uh, so there's the doctor. He mentioned that yes, we have stomach, we can end that type of stomach problems. And the last one, number 4, the path to end the sufferings that Buddha provide this for noble Eightfold Path. It's like the doctor prescribes the medicine according to our illness so that we can overcome that type of illness. So there's the Buddha. The Buddha provide the ways, techniques, and principle for us to transform our sufferings into happiness. So in that noble eightfold path um, uh, is would categorize or divided into 3 trainings. The first one is the what we call the wisdom discernment, that including right understanding or right view or wise view, and the next one is right thought or right intention. That's what we need to have the wisdom to transform our suffering, and we will discuss uh, each of them in detail. And the second training, what we call the ethical conduct, include right speech, right action, right livelihood. Again, with this wisdom, it starts from our thought, and we have right view and right understanding of life. We can express ourselves verbally and bodily. Uh, and of course, we can apply those principles within our life whenever we hold our jobs. So those are what we call ethical conduct that we need to have. And this last training, what we call mental discipline, that includes right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration. So without mental discipline, without mental training, it's not easy for us to reform or to follow the path of happiness. Because, for example, if we have the thought of generosity, we want to have, for example, homeless people, and somehow our family members or some of our friends say, well, why do we help those people instead of using money or food for them? Why don't we consume and enjoy ourselves? So of course, without understanding uh, about the uh, fate of those homeless people, without having any kind of sympathy or compassionate thought toward them, yeah, we will be waved by those comments from our friends and from members that we may not uh, like to step out to help those uh, unfortunate people. But if we know, yeah, they need help, probably it's because of some crucial moments that they lost their jobs, that they cannot handle their life, they cannot pay their mortgage, uh, and so forth. That's why they end up on the street. So with that type of compassionate, understanding mind, we form to step out to help them. So again, that firmness comes from mental discipline. And because of that mental discipline, we have the wisdom. We know about uh, the reason why we step out to help those needy ones. So those are the basic trainings, or what you call the three trainings: the wisdom, the ethical conduct, and mental discipline. So today we will discuss one of them, and here another join. Here the wisdom part, and it, of course it includes right views, a wise view, a right intention, a right intention. Right here, the ethical behavior, the my training, my discipline. So we discuss one by one. So the first one we will discuss what we call the right understanding or right view supply. We can call wise view, wise understanding. That's okay too. So in this kind of approach, we need to have right views about fundamental truths, like we recognize, as the Buddha say, that he indicated symptoms of illness, he indicated the cause of illness, he indicated the cure, the way we can stop the illness, and the last one is the treatment, how we treat those illnesses uh, by, again, the eight noble paths. And that is what we call the Four Noble Truths. We have to understand that. We have to have the right views about those noble truth. And in these categories, we have to understand about the law of cause and effect, what we call karma in Buddhism. So, in order to recognize why we suffering, we need to recognize that law, the natural law of cause and effect. No one read that kind of law. It's like the law of gravitation. That if we drop something from the air, it would hit to the ground because of uh, the gravity. So again, as a Buddhist, we need to recognize this kind of law, the natural law, the law of karma. So we have heard some definitions about law of karmas. But before move on, let me show you some of video clips, and especially, in the last few weeks, uh, we have the coronavirus pandemic. It's happened everywhere around the world, and it's killed more than 10,000 people. It affect more than hundreds thousands of people already. So this type of virus didn't come from the air. It didn't come from nothingness. It come from January, the Wuhan wildlife market, or what we call the wet market, where they uh, trade, or they sell and buy the wildlife animals, and some of them they kill them on the spot, and that's why those viruses from animals, especially from the bat, or from uh, the other animals that would kill and consumed by human, and those virus that live in those wild animals will be transmitted into human body, and from human it transfer to other human. That's why it spread at first from Wuhan wet market, a wildlife market, and it spread to the whole city, and it spread to whole state, whole province, whole China country, and now the whole world. So uh, again, it has a cause of this type of pandemic. So again, let me show you one more times to remind each other the cause of this coronavirus.
Concerns over the Wuhan coronavirus developing into an international emergency, experts are working against the clock to find the source. Many believe it might have come from wild animals that were slaughtered on site and sold illegally at a fish market in the Chinese city. Here's Yi Young with the updates.
The new strain of coronavirus was first found in people who visited or worked at a fish market in the city of Wuhan. While it is still unclear exactly how it started or was transmitted, foreign media, including Bloomberg and CNN, are pointing to live animals that were sold at the fish market. They cite experts who blame the so-called wet markets, where live animals like chicken are slaughtered on site and sold without being properly packaged. There is also the illegal sale of wild animals like rodents, bats, and raccoons that are served as local delicacies. According to Jeremy Farrar, one of the specialists in infectious disease, Wuhan coronavirus may have been lurking in those animals for decades, and over time, it might have become stronger, adapting to infect humans. He says those who touch infected animals can be exposed to viruses. This is in line with the pattern of another case of coronavirus, SARS, with its 2002 outbreak reportedly coming from a raccoon-like animal from China's Guangdong province. That outbreak led to a ban on the sale of exotic animals, only for them to reappear in black markets. Many experts also say that the upcoming Lunar New Year holiday is a critical moment in the outbreak's development, as millions of Chinese are set to travel overseas during the time. The World Health Organization is set to hold an emergency meeting on Wednesday to discuss whether to classify the situation as an international emergency. Countries are also enhancing screening at airports to try to contain the virus. But it is important that people take preventive measures individually, as it is confirmed that the virus can be transmitted through human contact.
The Disease Control and Prevention Center recommends washing your hands frequently, covering your mouth when coughing, and wearing masks. Also, for those traveling to Wuhan, avoid contacting those with symptoms and touching animals.
The symptoms of the virus include a fever up to 41 degrees Celsius, severe pain in throat, and vomiting. For people in South Korea, if you have symptoms like these, within 14 days of returning from overseas travel, call 1399.
Okay, so again, we recognize as when things happening is happenings is not because of nothingness, it's happening because of some causes. So again, for the coronavirus, it came from the Wuhan wet market, wildlife market that spread the uh, virus from animals into human beings. So we need to recognize us. Of course, for some of us, we would not mm, uh, accept that, but that is the reality according to Buddhism. Uh, so we don't blame on anyone else. We don't blame on the heaven of God. We recognize whichever thing happen, most of the time it's happen uh, because of us. So again, that's why this kind of coronavirus spread everywhere. If we uh, didn't consume wildlife animals, so we would minimize the spread of the virus, and but because somehow we could not recognize that we have harm animals, and that's the way the effect it mm, brought upon us. So, in Buddhist view, that whichever thing we have done, if we have some effect, no matter what kind of action we have. So basically, karma is a word that was translated as an action. But in Buddhist view, um, in order to develop a karma, we need to have what we call intention. Um, if we don't have intention to kill animals or to harm others, we would not have any kind of bad karma or heavy karma. For example, when we drive the car on the road and suddenly a deer cross the freeway, and somehow at that moment we could not stop our car suddenly, except hitting that deer. Of course, that deer may die, but because of the accident, so somehow we would not receive much heavy karma. Then while we see that deer standing on the road and we have intention to drive our car and hit it. So again, in Buddhist view, the intention is more important. Like when criminals were brought into the court, and it is up to the judge or the jury to determine the seriousness of the crimes that criminal have created. So if that criminals has intention to kill others, definitely that the judge and the jury panels may give the heavy sentence for that criminals. Otherwise, they may let him go. So again, in Buddhist view, uh, karma grade in the severe way whenever we have intention. So that's why we need to be careful about how we uh, think, uh, uh, the way how we interact with other people. So in general, the Buddha said that if a person commit an act of good or evil, he himself become the heir of that action. This because the action never actually disappear. So again, no matter what kind of bad or good karma we create, eventually we will receive the retributions, whether it's good or bad retributions, uh, according to those action or those karma, especially those intentions. Yeah. So again, in Buddhist view, every effect has a cause. We may not be able to identify them, but in Buddhist view, uh, if we believe in reincarnation, if we believe in the past, that limit past life, and the present life, and the future life, we would recognize that those two periods of times connect with each other. We cannot separate the past from the present. We cannot separate the present from the future. Whether we shrink out the times or extend out the times. The moment that I have spoken, that's mean the past. The moment that I'm speaking, that's the present. The moment that I'm going to speak, that's the future. And we can extend out. We have yesterday, today, and tomorrow. We have last year, this year, and next year. We have last decade, this decade, and next decade. And we can extend out last lifetime, this lifetime, and next lifetime. So whichever thing we do will affect to us in one way and another. Uh, so, for example, the things that we um, may have done, let's say last week, it will affect to us now, and the thing what we're doing, it will affect to our future. So that is why this says that if you want to know what did you do in the past, look what you receive now. If you want to know what you're going to receive, look what you are doing now. For example, a doctor uh, serve in a hospital, a clinic. Uh, he had been studying or trained for so many years. He had gone through schooling since he was young, from elementary levels up to high school, college, graduate levels, and of course, that's why eventually he got a degree as a doctor. So there's engineer, teacher, professors. So nothing's come from nothingness. Everything has the cause. So um, because of the past starting, that's why currently they have the status of a engineer, doctor, a teacher, a professors. Without past training or studying, there's no way for them to become doctor, engineer, or teachers. Of course, whichever thing they do, for example, if the doctor spend more times to have patients now in the future, yes, they would recognize his effort, his work that contribute to community or society. So with that type of commerce, we could recognize is related to the past, the present, and the future. And this kind of commerce is governed by the law of nature. No one developed that. The Buddha just reminds us that we need to recognize this type of cause and effect, um, this type of karma, so that we can have the choice to create the good deeds, so that eventually we can receive good retributions. And this is within our choice, this is within our abilities. And again, we look at our situations, our life, we could recognize us. Um, if we want to be successful in business, yes, we need to put much effort in taking care of our uh, employees, our customers, and our business. If we don't care much about our employees, if we don't care much about our life, if we don't care much about our customers, there's no way for us to be successful in business. So do other professions. So that's why we need to recognize if we want to be successful in any professions, um, we would mm, put much effort uh, into those work. Otherwise, we would not receive anything uh, that we want to. Even we get the support from other people, like our parents and other friends. For example, a student, if they don't study much, uh, even they study under a great teachers, even they have the financial support, emotional support from their parents. Uh, but what happened if they're so lazy? So no one can provide the diplomas to them unless they take uh, the effort to study hard, and eventually they would receive the diploma accordingly. So again, the law of cause effect, or the law of commerce, it applied in any circumstances. It affects to our physical life, our mental life, our mature life, spiritual life too. For example, if we are angry, if we are depressed, if we have so much anxiety, again, uh, that may uh, be affected by other people. It's not come from nowhere else, from nothingness. For example, mm, if we blame on other people, that made us being angry. If we blame on other people, that made us having some kind of stresses, anxiety. But we don't recognize as probably we may say something that may be offended to them, and that's why in return they may say something that we feel uh, that is so offended. So again, we need to recognize as if we want to have the good retributions, good effect, we need to uh, create a good cause uh, of the good deeds, so that in return we would receive those good karma, or those good uh, retributions. Otherwise, there's no way for us to receive that type of good retributions that we wish to have. So again, by understanding the law of karma, we would recognize why sometimes we uh, mm, try our best to do good deeds, but we encounter some difficult people that they may give us the hard times. And again, with that kind of understanding about the karmas, we know that probably in the past, of course, if you don't believe in past, like let's say the past few years, the past decades, somehow we raised some kind of bad karma already, and now they came back to uh, see us, and we have to pay for that debt. For example, if we uh, uh, borrow money to pay for our house, and of course we would have that kind of mortgage, let's say for 10 years, 20 years, or 30 years. And with those periods, yeah, we try our best to pay the debt, let's say monthly, but it's spent out for 10 years, 20 years, or 30 years, depend upon our ability to pay those debts. So again, um, because we borrow that type of money and now we have to pay for the debt. So in Buddhism, we see the karmas like the way that we put the money into the bank, or that means we save the money in the bank, or we borrow the money. Whenever we help other people, whenever we do good deeds, it's similar as we put our money into our saving account. And whenever we drive bad karmas, and it's like we borrow the money. And of course, the more we do good deeds, the enjoyable life we may have, and vice versa. If we do the bad karma, um, so eventually the bad retribution will fall upon us. So that's why we need to recognize, and that's why the Buddha said that according to the seed, that's the soul. So is the fruit you reap this form. Door of good will gather good. Door of evil, evil reaps. Thou is the seed, and you should taste the fruits therefore. So that is what the Buddha reminds us. We need to recognize as we are the owner of life. We are the owner of our karmas. If we want to have good divisions, if we want to have a good life, and if we want to have good relationship with other people, we need to send out the good seed. We need to do good karma, and we need to take care of others. Otherwise, there's no way for us to receive good retributions. And that's why Dalai Lama he said that if you want to raise a good karma, help other people. So it's in line with the Buddha, and it's so common sense. It is not in strength when we talk about the karmas. Of course, when we talk about karmas in the Western notions, most of the time they say that, oh, God punish us because of our sin. That is our karma. But in Buddhist view, the karma is more uh, in depth. That when we pray bad deeds with uh, wrong intention, with evil intention, we would raise the bad karma, and eventually, whether it's today, tomorrow, next month, next year, and so forth, we would receive that type of retributions. And that's why the Buddha say that whenever we create the karma already, no matter where we go, if we fly to the heaven, if we hide ourselves underneath of the mountain or underneath of uh, a sea, uh, karma eventually we get earth. So that's why we need to recognize that type of lack energy that we have raised in the past. That's why we need to be careful how we set it out the seed that we plant. That's why in Buddhist circle we used to say that living beings uh, we are afraid of the effect of bad retributions. But for the Bodhisattva, they're afraid of planting the seed. So whenever they do anything, they need to be careful or mindful of the seed of uh, the intention that they want to put out. But for us as common people, most of the time because we are unmindful uh, of things, we would raise some bad karma and eventually we receive bad retribution and we concerned or frightened about that type of bad retributions. So, for example, uh, like I mentioned recently that if we don't kill wild animals, if we don't consume those life, if we don't harm them, if we don't create the sufferings upon them, we may not have this type of coronavirus spreading everywhere. So that's why, as a Buddhist, we encourage people uh, to take a stand to become pure vegetarians, to abstain from consuming meat, so that at least we would not have much illnesses. And we know that there's many type of disease come from consuming meat, including uh, pig, cow, chicken, wildlife, animal, and so forth. So if we know the cause of sufferings, if we know the cause of illnesses, so we would not dare to create that type of causes. And yeah, definitely we would be more healthy. So that's why the law of karma is so important. So the next one, I like to talk about the types of karma in Buddhist view. The first type, what we call the productive karma, whether it's visible matters or invisible matter, whether it's in form or formless. So, for example, our body is created by what we call body karmas. It was composed by the four elements: earth, water, wind, and fire. So, the, our flesh, our bones, uh, and so forth belong to the earth. Our fluid, our blood, and so forth belong to water. When we exchange the air, the carbon dioxide, the oxygen in and out our body, that belong to the wind, and we have the warmness in our body, that belong to the five elements. And we have what we call the four derivative of karma, like color, odors, taste, nutritive essence, and the other one is this state of consciousness uh, that produce this physical body. And later on, we will study about the 12 cleansing conditions and we would recognize how we come about and where we head into. And again, that are the productive karmas that compose our body, that compose our mentalities, that compose our mature life, so forth. So the next type of karma is what we call the supportive karma. Supportive karma is like something that can support upon each other. And so, for example, if we go to school and we get support from our parents to pay for our tuitions, so we don't need to borrow the money from the bank. And after graduation from the school, we don't need to concern much about the loan. On the other hand, if we don't get the support financially from our parents or the state or the federal governments, we have to pay for the loan eventually. And of course, it's just one example. Another example is when we run the business, we may get the support from our family members, from our friends, from the one who provide us the tools, the guidelines, and suggestions, and so forth, how to run business successfully. So in any way, so if we get the support from all the people that made us be successful in life, that's what we call supportive karma. And so do we. So if we see anyone that helping each other during this coronavirus crisis, we step out to support them. For example, uh, we know that in this city of Louisville, we have many places that provide the free meal for local homeless people. We can encourage our Buddhist people to step out to provide those free meal for them, as well as providing the mask, the clothes, any kind of medical equipment um, to the hospital. So that is the way we can do what we call supportive karma. And nowadays, many uh, Vietnamese people around the countries, we try to support our communities by making the mask and the clothes and so forth. And that's the way we can return um, uh, their support, kindness uh, that have helped us to live in this country as well as to be successful in doing our business. And so that's what we call supportive karma. In general, whichever thing we support other people in a positive way, that's what we call supportive karma. Um, and the next one, what we call obstructive karma or counteractive karma. And by the names, we know that. So let's say if we see someone who have a charter, but we try to talk them out, we try to stop them, we try to obstruct them uh, to do good karma. That's what we do what call obstructive karma or counteractive karma. So that is in the negative way. In the positive way, like if we see someone uh, smoking, someone gambling, we try our best to talk them out. We try our best to discourage them not to smoke anymore, not to go to casino anymore. That's the good obstructive karma that we can do to help them to step out of those addiction. And the next one, what they call the destructive karma. The karma that we may bring to others or to ourselves, that's maybe destructive. Like for example, if we cannot control anger, we may throw the chairs around, we may slam the door, we may hit the tables, we may throw the laptop, and so forth. And that is what we call destructive karma. Okay, so since time is up, let me stop here today. And next time, I will discuss further about um, some types of karmas so that we can recognize uh, this type of law of natures so that we can have the wisdom to choose the good karma that we want to create and to stay away from bad karma that we don't want to plant. Nam mô Shakyamuni Buddha.